to Teach Me Bees. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. I've got with me co-host Scott the Beekeeper.
Good
And this
morning.
morning, I feel like I've been stung in the face.
Many times. Maybe by a wasp.
Many times would be very painful. Interestingly enough, our little bee farm sits on the property where I live. And because that we have some acreage, we have about 6 acres out here. And we have these yellow jackets. Since you brought up yellow jackets, and yellow jackets are not the friend of the bees. So
No.
everybody is always focused on killing yellow jackets, right? Like everywhere. And so my wife was telling me the other day, she says, "Yeah, I was talking to Scott, and we have a bee's nest or a wasp's nest by the side of the house." And I was like, "Oh, yeah?" And she's like, "Yeah, I asked Scott about it." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, what did he say?" He said, "Well, he hadn't seen a nest like this before, so he needed to do some research on it and figure out what it was first." And I said, "Really?" I said, "That's what's going on." I said, "It looks like a standard wasp nest to me." And she said, "No, Scott said he needed to do some research on it." And I said, "Well, let's just spray it and kill it because they're definitely paper wasps."
Yeah. Yeah. It's, the yellow jacket nest usually has like a bunch of holes and whatnot that they come flying out of and everything. This one looked
Yeah.
different with like one hole. So I wasn't sure if
One
the
hole
spray
at the
would
bottom,
work.
right?
Yeah. 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 Yep.
That's
So
how
I
I always see
figured,
them. One hole at the bottom.
okay. I figured
Around
that might be,
at least the ones around here, at least. But
yeah. So
but
you got it. You got it.
no, I didn't.
Okay.
I don't have any
Okay.
bee spray.
Okay. I will,
I don't have
I'll
any
get
I
some
don't have any
spray.
bee spray. I don't have any bee spray. But I was just like, the thing is when you soak them with that bee spray, it soaks through the paper wasp's nest and it just kills them all.
Yeah. Yeah. With any luck, the rain today will wash them away.
The
Unlikely,
rain
but
will wash them away.
yeah.
They're hanging out. They're hanging out under the eaves. I was listening to something last night, and they said that there's more songs written about the rain than anything else.
Huh. I mean, I guess so. It's a popular topic.
I was listening. Oh, where did I hear? I heard that on Sirius XM.
They would never lie to you.
Well, they, as the corporation, may not lie to me, but the guest host might have some false information. I mean,
Potentially.
I don't know.
Potentially.
It's definitely something to fact check. All right. So today, Teach Me Bees, episode 401. We're talking about 10 tips and tricks for the backyard beekeeper or for the commercial beekeeper if you want. But
Yeah.
it's an
They're
exciting
applicable.
show.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, they're the same. You like how I'm getting eaten by a bee?
Yep. Yep. Your graphic behind you. That if bees were truly that large, I would not be a beekeeper. That would be terrifying. If for
Don't they
anyone,
blow a bee up in one of the Honey I Shrunk the Kids movies?
I don't know. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. If you're listening on audio, maybe just hop on over to Facebook or YouTube or whatever and just look at the size of this bee in Dave's screen. It's bigger than like his whole body almost. It's crazy.
It can pick. It looks like it's gonna eat my head off right now.
Oh yeah, it'd fly by and pick you up and carry you away.
Yeah, it's an awesome bee. All right, what's the number one tip for beekeeping on the list today as we work the top 10? This is like David Letterman's top 10 for beekeeping. Do you know who
I
David Letterman is?
yes, I know who David Letterman is. I did not put these necessarily in specific order, but here's our top 10 tips and tricks.
On my list, they are actually listed 1 through 10.
Well, I did list them that way, but I didn't necessarily say here's the most important one. Number one isn't necessarily the most important one, but for the sake of the conversation, I named it "Spring Back into Action." Spring back into action, meaning that the springtime is when you can bounce back. Maybe you had a rough season. maybe you had a rough fall, maybe you had a rough winter, but come the spring, you can bounce back. Your hives will bounce back. Granted, feed them,
And how do
but
we do that?
well, naturally on their own, their population will increase. They are gonna want to begin to go pollinate, go fly around. The temperatures will warm up, and they are gonna go out. But if you feed them, if you make sure once they start to grow, you give them a second box. If they're out one box, if you split them from one hive to two hives, it's the opportunity for your apiary to bounce back. So spring is when you bounce back into action. Spring is an important time. I think that's one
Spring
of the
is a
most important
very
things.
important time. All right, I
It
like
it,
that.
it
So
can
spring
be
is important.
you can be discouraged maybe in the winter. I've known beekeepers that have been discouraged by the winter with their hive loss, but if you look forward to spring coming, it can often change your apiary in significant ways. So, the
What is the most
second one,
significant way? What is the most significant way?
I mean, your population can triple, quadruple. I mean, potentially more, depending on how good of a queen you have and how much you're feeding them. So your hives
How
will
much should we feed them?
grow as much as you can for like 2 or 3 months. Just
What
feed
month
them,
should
let
we
them get
start?
stronger.
January? Should we start that in January?
If your weather's good enough, you potentially could. Um, but I'm thinking more of actually in the spring, April, May, June, be feeding, so that come end of June into July, they are going to be great for pollinating the summer crops.
And what should we be using? Sugar water,
Yep, sugar
pollen
water.
patties.
Pollen patties are great when they're producing a lot of brood, so they're best in the springtime. Um, yeah, give them a boost of pollen.
How do you mix the sugar water in the spring? Is it different than what you would do in the summer or
Yeah, it's more of a 1-to-1 ratio, whereas like later fall, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So that means the sugar is twice as much as the water is, where in the spring it's the same level of mixture, 1-to-1. So one
that
cup
must
to
get
one
pretty
cup.
thick?
It does get pretty thick. Yep. I actually had some probably a month ago that I mixed together, and I didn't mix it well enough that this in our tote we had about an inch and a half, 2 inches thick of sugar at the very bottom.
Wow.
I had to problem solve that one. It was kind of a pain in the butt to fix. Not gonna
So
lie.
I'm going to tell you a story about this real quick
Okay.
before we get into tip number 2. Okay, so my dad loves uh hummingbirds. My grandmother loved hummingbirds, which is why I think my dad loves hummingbirds. And if you go into my dad's house, where he has a chair that he sits in, it kind of looks out this front bay window, and he's got like 6 or 7 hummingbird feeders out there. Now, hummingbirds, they make their own, my parents make their own mixture for them to drink, and it's sugar water. Now, I don't know if it's mixed 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, but it is very sugary. So one time I'm at my parents' house, and they normally don't have a lot of things to drink over there. But so I go in the fridge, and I notice they have a nice pitcher of cold water. So I take a nice glass of pitcher of cold water, man. I drink that down. I'm like, dang, that's the best water I've ever had. That is some good water right there. So man, I quickly down a second glass of water. I'm feeling so good. It's tasting so good. About an hour later, I go and I finish off that jug of water, and I'm like, man, that is some good water. And sometimes later my dad goes into the fridge and he's like, hey, who drank the water for the hummingbirds? And I was like, I drank the hummingbird water. I didn't know it was hummingbird water. Nobody told me it was hummingbird water. I was like, no wonder it was so good.
Yeah, you were
It's
getting all
really
that
good.
sugar. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
no wonder the birds and the bees like it.
that's right. It's really, really good. All right, tip number 2. What's tip number 2?
Count the cost. count the
Ooh, what does this
cost.
mean?
Your money adds up, and you you need things, you need supplies, you need boxes, frames, etc. And often you don't realize you need it till you need it. So if you can pre-plan, if you can expect what a cost will be, plan for it, it's gonna feel a lot better on your pocketbook. It's gonna just, you would rather not be in the midst of something. You're inspecting your hives and you're like, shoot, I need another box with 10 frames. And then you don't have another box with 10 frames. So plan a little bit. You're going to need to buy your supplies, count the cost, things add up. If you don't do it, maybe you get a swarm, you lose half your hives. You decide, oh, I'm not going to feed this time around. Maybe you starve your bees and they die, etc. So you need to count the cost, plan. Things add up in beekeeping. In the initial investment, if you're going to just say you get a couple hives with basic gear and stuff, you're going to spend $1,000. So plan for that.
Things add up faster than you think.
Yes. Yes, they do.
Like they really, really get going.
Yep.
The costs. Sugar
Especially
water is expensive. Pollen
the
patties
more
are
bees.
expensive.
Yep, the more bees you have, the more feed you have. The more frames you need to have, the more boxes you need to have. So it all adds. It all adds up.
What's your suggestion for this? What's a good tip? How should they manage the costs?
Um, Determine how much maybe you want to spend, or how many hives you're willing to invest in, and then from there make your decisions. So if you're like, I only want to spend $2,000, okay, well, how much? What does $2,000 get you for a beekeeping season? Do a little bit of research and estimate out. If you're like, okay, I wanna have 10 hives. Plan, okay, how much should it cost to feed 10 hives? What are the supplies I need for 10 hives to go to 2 boxes, maybe even 3 boxes? Um, and then make a roadmap from there. So the best you can plan, the better it's going to be.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So we have a budget template that we use that we fill out.
Yep.
So if anybody's interested, send us a message, send us a DM, and we're happy to send you our budget template. We're happy to share with the community on how we budget.
Yep, more than willing to help. The third tip is bees bounce back. This is kind of related to spring. Obviously, in the spring, bees multiply and they grow. But even in the summer, if there's an issue with your hive, you lost your queen, maybe you extracted more honey than you anticipated or wanted to, or your hive looks weaker than you thought it should be, give your bees like 2 to 3 weeks and they often bounce back. Put in an extra frame of brood from a really strong hive into a weak hive. Change out the queen if you need to. I've seen so many of our hives that I've been like, oh, you're not doing as well as I want you to be doing. And then within 2.5 weeks, whether it's because they didn't have a laying queen at the time, she went on mating flight, came back, and just started laying. We replaced the queen, or I added a frame or two of brood, and then that was the boost that they needed. Your bees are resilient. They will bounce back from most things. So bees bounce back. They're really good. Before beekeepers ever were taking care of them, they were able to survive in the wild, and so they are resilient creatures. I'm not saying neglect them by any means, but your bees often will bounce back just with minimal, just a little bit of help.
That's a good tip. So bees bounce back. That's good. Let's see. Tip number 4. What do you got for tip number 4? I like this one.
Feed like a teenager. Feed like a teenager. If you've ever been a teenager or have teenage kids, at least in my experience of having been a teenager, they eat a lot. They eat a lot of food. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, second lunch, sometimes second breakfast. They're just food, food, food. So for the bees, think of them like a teenager, a hungry teenager. You just got to keep feed them. You got to feed them, especially in the spring and then especially in the fall. This is the biggest two windows to feed. In the winter, you may also feed depending on your circumstances and if you could get into hives or, you know, whatever. Feed your bees like it's a teenager. They're going through a growth spurt. That's kind of what the message is. Feed them because they're growing.
The
And
thing is about this is sometimes I eat like a teenager.
we all do sometimes. We all do. You know
Especially after you smoke some pot. I'm
that
just kidding.
might
I don't
that
smoke
might
pot. I'm just kidding. I don't smoke pot. I
yeah.
would be like 4 times the size if I did.
Feed your bees.
I feed your husband.
Yeah. Yes. Feed your people. Fifth tip: enjoy the weather. Enjoy the weather. So when it's over 60 degrees, that's when you got to be in your hives. That's when you got to take advantage. And sometimes in the summer, I mean, every day is above 60. So you don't have to every single day be in your hives. But you do need to take advantage of the weather. So enjoy it. Enjoy it in your bee suit. If you have a 5 hour window, spend 2 or 3 hours of it with your bees. You know, take advantage of the weather. Weather's important, especially spring when it's wet and not every day is great, and fall when it's becoming wet and cold and not every day is great. So enjoy the weather.
Yeah, I'm a believer in this. Enjoy the
Um,
weather. These tips are important. One of the things that I notice is that when it's really nice out, it's almost like a cloud of smoke. They're so thick above the hives.
mhm.
You can see them a few hundred yards away.
Yeah, it's really cool to walk up to the field and see them all flying around, and they're taking their orientation flights. Like they're coming out, circling the hives, kind of getting their GPS radar set up of like where am I, where's home base, and then they're going out. It's very cool to watch, especially if you have a lot of hives.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of bees are the ones who are out flying around doing the dive bombing?
The upset bees.
Is there a name for them? Are those drones? Are those
No, no,
nurse
they're probably
bees? Are they
probably not drones. No, they're just if you're right next to the hive, it could be a guard bee potentially. But more than likely, it's just an aggressive bee. They got the pheromone command somewhere to be aggressive to that there's a threat, and so they're dive bombing you. They're gonna let you know. Not every bee will sting you. Sometimes they'll just fly right into your face and let you know, hey, I'm here. Watch out.
It's amazing that people are afraid of such a little thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's an amazing that
I've had
go
a bee
ahead.
fly in between my glasses. That does terrify me a little bit. I don't want to get stung in the eye, so I do shake my head, panic a little bit there. I was like, get out of here. Or they're like almost in my ear. I don't, bees fly around me all the time. It's fine, but it's like in my ear. That one is a little terrifying. Not gonna lie. Um,
Okay, you know what my number one fear in life is?
Shark attack.
Well, that's definitely up there because I don't like sharks, but I mean I love sharks. I just don't want a shark attack. Listen, here is something that I think about. What would happen if somebody held you down, opened your eye, and stuck a needle into the center of your eye, and then pushed like testosterone or adrenaline or something into your eye and made your eye explode? when you said the bee could sting me in my eyeball, I immediately correlated those two things together.
Something I've learned is my wife is getting into the medical field, and she tells me stories that she's seen in the operating room and stuff. I don't like bodily pain things. I don't like things being stuck into you or cut open or anything like that. Nope. Um, but speaking of the body, sometimes this thing is regarded as bad for you. But my tip for us is that smoking is good for you in beekeeping only. Uh,
Really?
light your smoker. It's a great tool. It's one of the most interesting things to see a hive get smoked. You open it up and you smoke it, and all the bees trickle down in between the frames. They run away. It's actually kind of cool just to watch them. Sometimes I'll just smoke it and just kind of watch them if I'm not in a rush. Um, but smoking can be good for you. Smoke your hives, especially if you're a new beekeeper. I always recommend light it, smoke it. Even if you don't necessarily plan to use it, it's always great to have it next to you or near you, ready to have it lit, ready to go in case you need it. Some hives are a little bit more aggressive, and so sometimes one you can work in one hive and they're completely fine. You're done. You go to the next hive and you open the top, and they want to come say hi to your face, and you might just want to smoke the hive a bit. So smoking is important.
Smoking, that's very interesting. You know, I wonder, have you ever seen that the gal who does Save the Bees
Yep.
on the
Mm-hmm.
internet? Have you seen
Mm-hmm.
her?
Yep.
She does a great job out there. Um, but you know, one of the things that I wonder is, you know, she's always going into these hives that are in floorboards and inside of walls and suitcases and all sorts of stuff. Do you think she's smoking those hives before she's going in, or do you think she's just going right in?
She's probably smoking them, I would imagine. Um, Sometimes catching swarms, from what I've seen, can be pretty docile stuff. But I would imagine, and it does depend on where you're at, right? If they're Africanized bees, that's a whole nother story. But um, I imagine from someone who just knows how a little bit of how that works, I would imagine she's smoking. I would imagine um, there's more going on behind the scenes than you see in the 40-second clip that she shares. But I don't know.
Yeah, they're
Um,
cool clips.
they are. We just got a few more tips that we want to share with you. The next one: give yourself more time than you think you need. Inspections can take longer than you think. I was in some hives yesterday. I had a few hours, and I didn't get as much done as I planned because there was a few hives that I needed to move some frames around in, and that just takes time. Just takes time to move frames around. So give yourself more time than you expect that you need, right?
Isn't that true in everything? Everything in life, that's so true.
Everything takes longer than you think it will, right? Um,
Yep.
so give yourself more time. Um, get yourself a bee coach or a bee mentor. Hopefully, you are not getting into beekeeping without any input from anyone else. That is just ill advised. Get yourself a mentor, a coach, someone you can text a picture to and they can respond to you, someone that you can learn from. YouTube's great. There's a lot of good beekeepers on YouTube that you can get ideas from and get better understanding from. But having someone that you can actually interact with is really good. So get a bee coach. That would be my next tip. It's probably that might be the biggest tip. Get some kind of coach or mentor, and maybe join an association to get that meet someone who'd be willing to share with you and impart with you. So,
You know what? That's a good tip. And you know what? You might even want multiple coaches or multiple mentors. You know, you might want somebody who's really good at hives, but then you might want to get into queen rearing. And you know, that's a little different. That's a different ball game. That's a different program. So you know, just because there's different things going on, you might want to have different people who are experienced in different things. Honey extraction, not everybody extracts honey the same way. Pollination contracts, if you're going to do pollination work, you might want to talk and work with somebody who's done pollination contracts in the past, what to look out for, where to look up for them. If you're transporting bees, you might want to talk to or work with people who have actually transported bees. I know that where I live in Linwood about 4 years ago, an apiary truck dumped over, and they dumped, you know, a few hundred hives
wow.
into the into Highway 99 right off of 168th, and it went crazy. You know, the news was out there, people were like Attack of the Killer Bees, and you know, like it was a frightening moment, but at the end of the day, these were, you know, bees that just had a bad situation. So in everything that you're doing, like think of who you can contact and learn from those people as much as you possibly can. If you're going to take bees, you know, from Washington to California, you know, what lessons are to be learned there? How would you do that? Talk to somebody who's done it before. So it's really important to you know, have that focus and that drive when you're
Yeah,
doing the bees.
that's good. It's good. We're gonna need to wrap this episode up and land this plane. I think we only got to about 8 tips, but I hope those are all helpful for you. If you have questions for us, please reach out. Social media, Scott Galentine, Dave Westcott, whatever platform. Email us info@honeyforhope.org. We'd love to dialogue, answer any questions that you have, and maybe you have something that you want us to share or talk about. Um, yeah, reach out. And we're always
Happy to do
interested in
it.
guests too.
What are the final two tips, just so the audience can know? We don't have to dive into it, but what are they, just for the gang?
If you get the wrong sugar, it will be messy. And by that, I mean it's going to be gross. Your bees are going to be making a mess inside and outside of that hive. So don't get like organic sugar or powdered sugar or anything. Granulated sugar is what you need. If you get the wrong sugar, it's going to be a mess. And the other one is enjoy the land of milk and honey. Enjoy the land of milk and honey. Enjoy the sweet reward of honey from your hives. I think everybody likes that part
Take a
about it.
taste.
Yep, take a taste. It's so, so good. So there you go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, that's it. If you like this show, give us a like, give us a share, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, anywhere we're hanging out at social. I'm hanging out in all those places. Give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments in the comment box, and we will see you next week. Thanks, Scott.
Bye, everybody.